Yo, what's going down, Green Screen Entertainment fans? It's your homie Jay Green, back right now with a special review. A review I had no intention of doing because I really didn't have any idea that this movie was dropping this weekend. I probably heard a little bit about it a while back, forgot all about it, and then my wife reminded me, hey yo, you know what? There's a Peaky Blinders movie coming out this weekend on Netflix. Here it is. Fuck. Hell yeah. That being said, I got my review, my thoughts and my feelings on Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man. Now, I'm not going to go into a deep dive on the entire Peaky Blinders series, right? Started way back in 2013, ran for 6 seasons, ended in 2022. And for me, this series is phenomenal, right? It stars Academy Award-winning Cillian Murphy. This dude gets out of World War I, comes back, he's got the shell shock and all the trauma that comes with war back in the day. And him and his band of merry men basically start a gang, an outfit, if you will, that kind of runs Birmingham, and they are feared by many. A lot of shit goes on, a lot of ups and downs, as you would imagine, with a phenomenal conclusion. But you always wonder what really happened to Thomas Shelby. Well, this movie kind of answers that and puts a nice conclusion to the man as a whole. And this movie truly wraps up Thomas Shelby's saga, if you will, with a wonderful conclusion. Now, this movie was directed by Tom Harper, and it was written by the original creator of Peaky Blinders, Stephen Knight. Now, off the top, I'm gonna tell you like this. I love a period piece. I love being transported back to a different time and a different place that I have no idea what it is all about. Tell me the story, build me into this world, into this universe, give me some characters that I can grab a hold of that got something going on, that I can follow along in their arc, in their journey, their trials and their tribulations. And Peaky Blinders, the show, did just that. For me, I kind of think of Peaky Blinders as my Game of Thrones. You're probably like, Jay Green, what the hell are you talking about? Peaky Blinders is nothing like Game of Thrones. Yo, I understand that. I understand. What I'm saying is that Game of Thrones has a huge following. It is a niche, but it has a huge following, and it is set way back in some type of ancient medieval time, if you will. And people love that shit, and they hang on to every word, every phrase, every house, everything that has to do with that show. They love it. They follow all the spin-offs, the sequels, the this and the that, right? I never got into Game of Thrones. Not because I didn't like it, just because I didn't have HBO when it came out. And years later, after it was like 8 seasons deep and a couple of spin-offs and prequels, I'm like, ain't nobody got time for that.
There's always time.
But a show that I heard a lot about and I was able to visit after it was already into a few seasons and kind of pick up where it was leaving off was Peaky Blinders. And for me, I fell in love with this show. I hang on to every word. I hang on to every emotion, every little thing jumping off, every nuance, their swag. And in the same way that Game of Thrones fans get pumped up by that intro music, I get pumped up every time I hear it.
On a gathering storm comes a tall, handsome man in a dusty black coat with a red right hand.
So that being said, I was hella excited to watch this film, and I think it was terrific. The original series ended with a bit of an ambiguous ending, and this movie kind of picks up showing us where he's at right now. He's reckoning with everything that happened in the past, facing his demons, living with a bit of sorrow and regret, and at the same time accepting the position that he's put himself into. When all of a sudden his sister comes knocking at his door and lets him know that a huge factory in Birmingham just got bombed. It's World War II. Hitler's acting the type of way that Hitler be acting. And right now his illegitimate son, Duke, is kind of running that Peaky Blinders outfit, and he's about to get caught up with the wrong people. So she's stepping to Tommy talking about, yo, you gotta do something about this. He contemplates it for a minute, and then eventually he puts on that newsboy's hat, his cape and cowl, if you will, and he heads out and you know it's about to be on. So in this movie, he's gotta reckon with his past, right some wrongs, figure his son out and make sure he's on the right path, if you will. The movie has to tie up a few loose ends, give us a great and meaningful and impactful and worthy conclusion to some of the Peaky Blinders and those associated with them. And it's got to give us some of that classic Peaky Blinders swag. Because if you ain't giving us all of that, then what are we doing here? And from my perspective, I think that this movie did all that and more. Now, other than those little details, I'm not really going to give y'all much to this film. As always, I don't say too much. If I think it's a good movie, I want y'all to watch it, be as fresh as possible. And if you're a Peaky Blinders fan and like me, you forgot that this movie was actually coming out this particular weekend, I definitely don't want to say anything. I want y'all to just pop that Netflix on and watch it because it is worthy of the watch. And I think you're going to be thoroughly entertained. There was multiple times in this movie that I got choked up, 1 or 2 times that I even had water coming out of my eyes. I was on the edge of my seat in a couple portions of it. And just like the show, it had me begging characters not to do a certain thing. And then when certain things went on and certain characters was about to put that cape and cowl on and go out there and handle that business, I got pumped and goosebumps all over. It was phenomenal. Now, of course, Cillian Murphy is an Academy Award winning actor, so you can expect nothing but greatness from this guy. I've been a huge fan of his from way back in the day. I think probably when I first seen him in the movie Sunshine. It's a Danny Boyle movie about the world basically going into an ice age or whatever, and he's gonna save the world by reigniting the sun. Good movie. I mentioned it just recently in my Project Hail Mary review. But aside from him being great, there are 2 additional actors that are brought into the Peaky Blinders fold, and that's Tim Roth and Barry Keoghan. Now, Tim Roth is a legend in his own right, and he has a small yet impactful role. He's working for Hitler, he's working for the Ops, and right now he's trying to manipulate Barry Keoghan's character, who is Duke, which is Thomas Shelby's illegitimate son, to do some shit that he really shouldn't be doing. And the way that he plays his character up top is kind of like a normal guy. But as time goes on, you start to see that even though Barry Keoghan's character, Duke, is a pretty ruthless guy because he got some daddy issues, Tim Roth's character, he ain't playing around either. And aside from just being a manipulative individual, some of his actual actions are the true catalyst for what's about to jump off in this movie. He did great. Now, Duke, played by Barry Keoghan, this dude has a couple wires loose, and the way that Barry Keoghan plays him was great. Barry Keoghan is one of those dudes that I'm starting to feel like he's this generation's Joe Pesci. Wild to say, I'm sure of it, right? But the reason I say that is because a lot of the roles that I see him in, he's either super weird and awkward, and you never know when he's gonna snap, or he's just outright and overtly intimidating. And again, you never really know when he's gonna snap. And that was kind of like Joe Pesci in the heyday of gangster films like Goodfellas and Casino. But one thing I think Barry Keoghan gives us a little bit more than Joe Pesci was, as great as he is a little bit more nuance with his mannerisms, his actions, his facial expressions, the tones of his voice, the intimidation in his eyes, things like that. Joe Pesci, when he played those guys, he was a live wire. He was snapping any moment, yes, but his actions were almost louder than his words. With Barry Keoghan, the way that he plays these characters, his words are sometimes louder than his actions. A little bit more frightening, if you will. And I love that about these characters that he plays. The conflict in this film between Thomas Shelby and his son is intense. It is gripping. It is suspenseful because you never really know what's truly gonna happen, especially with certain things that they're giving us up top in the beginning of the film. Now, if you had told me that Netflix was coming out with a movie that was gonna follow up after the conclusion of one of their legacy properties, kind of in the way that Breaking Bad had El Camino with Aaron Paul, I'd be like, is it really gonna work out? And if in that same movie you had told me that Thomas Shelby was basically gonna be like Marty McFly when Doc comes back and says, yo, something's gotta be done about your kids, I'd be like, is it really gonna work though? And if you had told me that that lead character of the film was gonna have a conflict, whether or not they should or shouldn't get involved, and then when they finally do decide to get involved, they kind of put their classic outfit on in the way that Batman would put his cape and cowl on, walking out into the mist, into the smoke, into the fray, flap off that car cover, revealing his Batmobile, if you will, superhero type swag, I'd be like, could it work though? Then if you told me that this movie was gonna have cinematography that is a cross between Sinners and Matt Reeves' The Batman, I'd be like, but can it work? And if you told me yes, I'd be like, you goddamn lying. But fuck, it did. As I'm watching this movie, I'm loving everything about it. The cinematography was gorgeous. It felt tangible. There was a texture to it. It felt old and it felt grimy. It didn't feel like certain movies and things like that that we see on streaming or even in theaters sometimes, where it has an old school look and vibe to it. There's a little bit of grain, but everything is still very clear and clean. The reason why I said Sinners and The Batman is because those are two movies that I know y'all have seen where the cinematography looks a little muddied. It looks unclear. It's clear when it needs to be, it's muddied when it needs to be, and it has a lot of texture. It has a lot of character. And I love that about this movie, and I love that about the show in general. I referenced the Batman and Dark Knight and superhero type swag because it really felt like that to me, right? He's off on his own. He's dealing with the demons of his past and the things that he's done to put him in this position with no real loved ones around, no one to have, no one to hold, not even talking to his kids, avoiding his family and his sisters and everything that he once knew and once loved. Motherfucker. Please hold. And when he makes his return with that classic slow motion Peaky Blinders walk and swag, and with the iconic newsboy's cap draped brim low as he heads out there to do what needs to be done, I'm like, God damn if this ain't Batman right here. I'm like, yo, he on some Dark Knight swag, and I ain't mad. Yo, in the end of the day, I think that this movie was great. This was a great follow-up and conclusion to that original Peaky Blinders series. Cillian Murphy, Tim Roth, Barry Keoghan, and all of the other cast members from the show that were in this did an amazing job. The cinematography is beautiful. The story makes sense, and it truly feels like they didn't just make this movie because Cillian Murphy got an award. It doesn't feel like they just made this movie because they're like, hey, what can we do with some of our old IP? It honestly feels like a conclusion and a story that was worth telling in this world. And I love it for that. Hey, yo, are y'all Peaky Blinders fans? Have you heard about this one? Are you trying to check it out? If you have, comment below and let me know what's good. And for all of y'all out there who might be some Queen's Gambit, Bridgerton, or Downton Abbey type fans, check this out too. This is kind of in your whole world and your realm of time, if you will. It's just a little bit more grimy and gritty. You dig what I'm saying? But it's awesome. Yo, your homie, Jay Green, I'm out.